All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, I want to talk about a Bitcoin mining company. I want to go through Bitfarms, stock ticker BITF. This is a company we've talked about a lot on the channel. We do go through a lot of the Bitcoin miners as well as Bitcoin. So if you are new here, or if you've been here all along and you have not yet subscribed, we are making a push towards 20,000 subscribers. We're about 3 years into this. We just crossed 19,000. So I would appreciate anybody who would consider subscribing to the channel. In addition to that, we're going for 500 likes. I want to thank everybody for giving us so many likes. It does help the channel. It helps the video as well. With that said, let's talk about Bitfarms. There's a lot of things I want to talk about here today. I want to talk about a couple of press releases they put out recently. Bitfarms is going through a major transition. So I want to talk about where they've been, where they are right now, and I want to go through their investor presentation a little bit and talk about where they are going. A lot of things happened in the month of December for this company. We talked about these as they were happening. In fact, some of them we talked about before they happened. So I want to just walk you guys through a timeline, and let's talk about Bitfarms. I'm going to start by going through their December operational report. Okay, so this came out January 2nd, almost a month ago. Bitfarms earned 446 Bitcoin in the month of December and 4,928 Bitcoin for the full year, January 2023. I want to show you a couple of charts as to exactly where this puts Bitfarms versus their peers for the year 2023, and then we're going to talk about what's going on in 2024. First thing is, this is a chart of Bitfarms production over the last 13 months. So you can see their production has been very consistent. It did pop up in the month of December. That was the highest production they've had since May of 2023. Bitfarms had modest growth in 2023, so it was very impressive that they were able to maintain this level of production throughout the year, because while they were growing at about a rate of 50% by the end of the year, the Bitcoin network actually doubled throughout the course of the year. So in my opinion, Bitfarms is one of the top operational performing companies among the Bitcoin miners. There are 3 or 4 companies I think that stand out from the rest, and Bitfarms, in my opinion, is definitely one of them, and you can see from these results. If we compare that to the other Bitcoin miners in the month of December, you'll see Bitfarms was here in 6th place with 446 Bitcoin, just behind HUT at 453 and Cypher at 465. So these 3 were very close in 4th, 5th, and 6th. Then there was a pretty big jump up from there. So you're going to see across the board, Bitfarms was hanging around in about 6th place through most of 2023. It's my opinion that they are going to move up in 2024. I think they're going to be very solidly one of the top 5 Bitcoin miners. Later in the video, we will get to why I think that that is the case. Bitcoin mined year to date, this one's actually really interesting. Bitfarms mined 4,928. That was in 6th place, but it was just 2 Bitcoin behind Cypher at 4,930 in 5th place, so almost a virtual tie for 5th place. By those 3 measures, Bitfarms was very much about a 6th place Bitcoin miner in the year. However, if we look at a couple of other things, if we look at the efficiency rating, which is something that we've looked at all year, I do this once a month. This is the number of Bitcoin mined per exahash by Bitcoin miner. This is the top 10. So you're going to see all year long, I've highlighted these 4 in a lighter blue color. Even though Marathon was in 1st place in the month of December, that was the only month of the year that they were in 1st place. For the most of the year, they were in the middle of the pack. Bitfarms, Hive, Iris Energy, and CleanSpark were basically top 4 all year long. If you take the entire year, by my calculations, Bitfarm actually was the most efficient miner for the year, but I will tell you, Hive, Iris, and CleanSpark were very, very close. They were almost indistinguishable, and you'll see this list is getting closer and closer. So that is a brief history of where Bitfarms has been, where they spent the year 2023, but I want to talk about where they're going in 2024. This was the monthly operational report from October. Bitfarms puts out their monthly operational report on the 1st business day of the month each month. Okay, so I want to go to one specific sentence that they said inside of this report. If we go down to the middle of this report, there's a couple of quotes from Jeff Morphy, the CEO of Bitfarms. One in particular I want to talk about. So I've highlighted in blue. You'll see it says, in short, we are well positioned to invest for the remainder of 2023 and into 2024 and take advantage of disruptive opportunities around the halving. That was from Jeff Morphy, the CEO of Bitfarms. So you're going to see at the time that he said that, per this report, Bitfarms was at about 6.3 exahash. They were clearly giving us a signal that they would be investing in growth in the short term. They then had their conference call for their 3rd quarter earnings, and they reiterated that. So in their conference call, they basically said that they waited in 2023. They did not buy any XPs, which was the vast majority of the machines that all the Bitcoin miners were buying in the year 2023. They intentionally decided to wait and pass on the XPs and wait for the next generation, which was the 21s. So they said straight out in their conference conference call they would be investing in the next generation Bitcoin miners. Shortly after that press conference, this press release came out. This was on November 24th. It says Bitfarms announces $60 million Canadian dollars private placement with U.S. institutional investors. With this announcement, Bitfarms stock tanked. It got all the way down to just over $1. It got down to $1.01 on November 24th, and Bitfarms had been bouncing off of just around $1 for several months. We had been talking on the channel a lot about the fact that we thought Bitfarms was going to come out, and so this press release basically resulted in a big sell-off. This was on a Friday. On our Friday live stream, we have a live stream, by the way, every Friday after the market closes. We went through the two things that I just talked about, that Bitfarms had given us two heads up that they were going to buy machines. So it was no surprise at all to me that they were raising some capital. And I said on that Friday stream that I expected within the next 2 weeks an announcement from them that they would be buying machines. So sure enough, on Monday after the market closed, just one business day later, so this press release is titled, Bitfarms initiates transformative fleet upgrade that supports 17 exahash per second and 391 megawatts in 2024. This was the biggest press release that Bitfarms has ever put out. This is the biggest purchase they've ever made. This is the largest investment in infrastructure that they've ever made. They've been pretty methodical about growing out their infrastructure. They've been very efficient in my opinion, but you can see this press release right here gets them a pathway from 6.3 exahash all the way to 17 exahash. So not quite a triple. And in doing so, actually, you later find out that they're actually going to upgrade the majority of their existing fleet with this purchase as well. So you can see right at the start, they say they're going to purchase 35,888 Bitmain T21s. Well, this is exactly what they told us they were going to do. So this really should have been no surprise to anybody. Bitfarms stock really started to take a move to the upside. It got all the way from $1.01. Ultimately, it did get to around $3.50 within the next basically 1 month. Now it has pulled back from there. So we'll talk more about that later as well. Okay, so the last press release I want to go through is this one. This was January 24th, just a few days ago. Bitfarms purchases land in Paraguay in support of transformative fleet upgrade and 2024 target of now 21 exahash per second. In their December update, they announced that they were at 6.3 exahash. This is now a path by the end of 2024, just 12 months later, to get to 21 exahash. So as a percentage so far, I think this is probably the biggest growth plan out of all the Bitcoin miners. Now, they're not going to be the largest Bitcoin miner as a result of that, but this is why I say I do believe by pretty much every measure, if they can stay on this plan, they will be a top 5 Bitcoin miner. There's only just a few other Bitcoin miners that stand a shot of being 20 plus exahash by the end of 2024. And again, if we go back to this chart, which is where everybody was in December of 2023, you'll see there's only one Bitcoin miner that's over 20 exahash, and it's Marathon at 24.7 exahash. And CleanSpark both have a plan as well to get over 20 exahash in 2024. But another important piece of the puzzle is how each one of these companies executes their plan over the year 2024. A lot of these plans have a lot of optionality. They're not required to buy all these machines, so it's going to depend on the price of Bitcoin. It's going to depend on the overall difficulty level and global hash rate. There's a lot of variables involved in this, but you can see Bitfarms has positioned themselves to become one of the top Bitcoin miners with this plan. With that said, I just want to go through a little bit of their investor presentation that they just put out on January 16th. So right on page 1, they point out a few things. This was the #1 performing stock in the entire Toronto Stock Exchange in the year 2023, and it was also the #8 performing stock in the entire NASDAQ in the year 2023. So Bitfarms was a very, very strong performing stock in the year 2023. And the thing is, most of their growth is going to come in the year 2024, which is why I'm very optimistic. This is why I do think there's a lot of room left to the upside for this stock. And you can see, this is why I also believe they're operationally performing at a very high level. I think the market has rewarded them for that as the 8th best performing stock in the NASDAQ. That is a significant achievement. Okay, so with this slide, they talk about their growth. So you can see with their upgrade to 12 exahash, what they expect in Q2 of 2024, you're going to see that's going to drop them all the way from 35 watts per terahash to an efficiency of 25 watts per terahash. That's a significant improvement in efficiency, and at the same time, it's almost doubling their fleet. The last part of this graph shows two potentials. They have the potential to get to 17 exahash with the new machines they purchased, and then if they repurpose their existing machines, they have the potential to get to 21 exahash. And if they do so, there's the potential for them to do so by the end of 2024, so that's the second half of 2024. That would once again improve their efficiency rate to 23 watts per terahash. So this would make them extremely competitive. There are several companies that are targeting this, and that is what it's going to take. The 4 or 5 companies that I mentioned all have very similar plans to swap out a lot of their existing fleet, reduce their joules per terahash, and increase their exahash rate in order to stay ahead of the curve. Because remember, sometime about 80 days from now, we are going to be at the halving when the Bitcoin reward for solving a block gets cut in half. They could very well be mining more Bitcoin by the middle of 2024 than they were even pre-halving. Part of the key to this whole plan is what Bitcoin does from a price action standpoint. If Bitcoin remains stagnant or goes down, then there is the possibility that they're not going to execute on this whole plan, because this is a lot of capital expenditure if Bitcoin's price isn't moving. However, if Bitcoin moves the way it traditionally has post-halving, then I do believe there's a really good chance that Bitfarms executes on this plan as they have talked about. And at those prices, these exahashes, and this level of efficiency, I see a path for Bitfarms to be extremely successful under this formula. The last slide I want to show you deals with liquidity. This is another crucial part, in my opinion, for the Bitcoin miners. Proper liquidity, a strong balance sheet, I think is going to be crucial going into the halving, because we don't know in those weeks and months surrounding the halving exactly where the price of Bitcoin is going to be. Bitfarms points out in footnote 1 that they are cash flow positive and they expect to continue to be cash flow positive. But having said that, you can see they've drastically built up their liquidity. So even from the middle of 2023 to the end of 2023, they significantly more than doubled their liquidity. If you include their cash and their HODL in Bitcoin, they went from $47.6 million of liquidity to $118 million of liquidity. So I think this is another important piece of the puzzle as we look at these Bitcoin miners being cash flow positive, having a strong balance sheet, having liquidity, having a strong growth plan, increasing fleet efficiency. These are all the things that I'm looking at. One of the other things that I'm looking at, if we just take a quick look at their most recent financial statements, you'll see that general and administrative expenses were about $8.3 million. So if you take that as a percentage of revenue, this is among the lowest overhead out of all of the Bitcoin miners. There's about 3 or 4 Bitcoin miners that are at a similar level. So to me, those 3 or 4 Bitcoin miners that have this low overhead versus revenue, that sets up a very good equation for them to remain cash flow positive. So this is one of the things for a Bitcoin miner that is within their control. And I think Bitfarms has done a great job of controlling their overhead. So to me, a lot of the pieces of the puzzle are in place for Bitfarms going into the year 2024, going into the halving. If we take a look at their balance sheet, you'll see that as of September 30th, which is their most recent financial statements, they had $83 million in current assets. That's against just $29 million in current liabilities. So they had a very strong current ratio. Now we know that since then, they've significantly increased their liquidity. So really, in December, I expect to see even a much better ratio than this. So if I go back to their December operation report, they said the following: we maintain a strong balance sheet during the fourth quarter, and we increased total liquidity by $52 million to $118 million, ending the year with $84 million in cash, $34 million in Bitcoin in treasury, and only $4 million in debt. So this was a company that less than a year ago had over $100 million in debt. They have managed to erase their debt. I think by the end of February, this will be to zero. That's another important piece of the puzzle to me. There is no interest that this company is going to have to pay. There's no debt they're going to have to service after the halving. So these are all things. They've managed to keep their overhead low. They have no interest, no debt service. They're greatly increasing the efficiency of their fleet. So that is going to reduce their direct cost per coin. So all of these things, I think, position Bitfarms to have massive growth in 2024, to be cash flow positive as they go, and to put themselves really solidly, in my opinion, as one of the top 5 Bitcoin miners. I do want to point out this. They do have an at-the-market shelf offering of $375 million. So one of the ways that they're going to get where they're going is not only the 60 million Canadian dollars that they raised in December, but they do have a shelf offering. There's a large group of people that really do not like stock dilution. So I just want to point out, this is certainly going to be a part of Bitfarms' strategy. I don't expect them to use all 375 million of this to get to where they're going in the plan that they just outlined, but they will certainly use some portion of this, and for all I know, they will use all of it. Stock dilution used properly is very important for Bitcoin miners in particular. this is a very capital intensive industry. So pretty much all of the Bitcoin miners that have growth plans will be using stock dilution. Bitfarms is no exception, but I point this out because I do know for some people, they do not like to invest in companies that are doing this. This is just one other thing to consider. Just to quickly take a look at Bitfarms chart. This is their chart on the 1-day time frame. So you can see, as with all of the Bitcoin miners, all the Bitcoin miners had a peak on December 27th. Bitcoin was at around $43,000 on that day. Bitcoin is currently, as I'm making this video, trading at around $43,000. But in the middle, basically every single Bitcoin miner did have a big pullback, and Bitfarms was not immune to that. So you can see, despite the fact that Bitcoin is trading at almost the exact same level it was on December 27th, Bitfarms is down about 32%. So in my opinion, this is a temporary situation. So that would be my very first price target. I would expect them to get back to their December highs in a reasonable time frame. But more than that, for me personally, this stock is a buy and hold stock. I do know a lot of people swing trade the Bitcoin miners, and you can see with these wild swings, if that's what you do, I'm sure a lot of people do make money at that. I would just caution people that these are extremely volatile stocks. Bitfarms, as well as all the Bitcoin mining stocks, have a high level of volatility. So if that's not something you're interested in, then this may not be the stock for you. And for me, I'm more of a buy and hold. I have longer term aspirations for Bitfarms. I do expect Bitfarms to take out its highs from the previous Bitcoin cycle. So that was around $9.36. You'll see it's currently trading at $2.40 as I'm making this video. So, to me, there's the potential for the stock to 3 or 4 or 5x over the next maybe 18 to 24 months. Now, obviously, there's no guarantee of that. We talked about a lot of variables, the biggest variable of which is how successful are they going to be at implementing this plan that they've outlined, right? Because there's an awful lot of work to be done to get from their current 6.5 exahash to either the 17 or 21 exahash that they've talked about. So their ability to execute, the price of Bitcoin, the difficulty level of the overall network, all these things are going to weigh heavily as to whether or not Bitfarms ends up getting to any of the price targets that I'm talking about. And of course, if we look at this the other way, even just as recently as December 1st, which was less than 2 months ago, Bitfarms was trading at around $1.50. That's a 37% move to the downside, just if it revisits where it was just about 2 months ago. And if we go back just really a week before that, so just a little over 2 months ago, like we talked about earlier, Bitfarms was trading very near $1, so that would be about a 58% move to the downside. So you can see, this is what I'm talking about. These are highly volatile stocks. There is a big risk-reward equation for these, so, please invest very carefully. Do your own due diligence. So those are my thoughts on Bitfarms. That's a brief history of where they've been recently and where I think they're going. Hopefully you guys found some value out of this video. If you did, please drop a comment below and let me know what your thoughts are. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and smash the like button. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.